Gonzalez versus Google. What am I talking about, warriors? A very important Supreme Court case that was heard today. Now, let me explain why this is so important. This case was bringing Section 230 to the forefront, up for being held responsible for, for hosting third-party material on the internet. Let me explain this a little bit better to you. What this means is Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which we talk about a lot here on the Warriors, maintains that in 1996, at the beginning of the internet, that did not hold any platforms responsible for any third-party content put on those platforms. A great analogy would be, think of this as a newsstand, right? Fast forward to 2023, we talk a lot about the issues harming our children, the CSAM, the child sexual abuse material, all kinds of content that is harming all people. But let's break this down. Gonzalez versus Google. Now, this goes back to a case in 2015 where YouTube had some videos about ISIS, terrorism, and a young woman who was part of all of this was killed. Now, this was brought to the forefront right now, 8 years later. It is I want you to think very carefully about what I'm going to say. It is a very slippery slope. Our main concern here at the Warriors is child sexual abuse material. How do we, tamp that down? How do we get that off the internet? How do we stop that? Yet, as the Supreme Court pointed out today, this is not the right place to bring this case. This is something that should go to Congress. This should be voted. This should be legislature. This should be a repeal of Section 230, updates for Section 230. And I do agree with that, because if we're going to start talking about in the Supreme Court laws, remember, Warriors, that means all of us are going to be shut down. We're going to be mired in lawsuits, and we can't have that either. So it is a very, very kind of slippery slope to maintain freedom of speech, but then how do we protect the kids? I can't come up with anything concrete. I'm going to be honest with you, and I never say that. The only thing I can come up with is that these big tech platforms must be held responsible separately, that we should repeal, after all, Section 230, or even have at least some updates, right? Because 1996, that was so long ago. That was another world. I don't think anybody set out to really embolden these predators. I don't think anybody was really, really thinking about that at the time. But as we know, it's the genie out of the bottle. So what are we going to do now? If we have updates to Section 230, the only thing I can think of is that we hold the big tech platforms responsible. And by that, that means that they have to have, right now they fight us. They say they have content moderators. They have people, constantly going through the CSAM, the child sexual abuse material. But again, that's not enough. They say they're doing the best they can do. They're not doing a good enough job. And I think we all know that. And we have to figure out some way that they must have more content moderators, that they must take action for this criminal activity. Because remember, anything with a child, a minor, is criminal. That goes for abuse of all people, but let's stick with the kids right now. So I'm going to be thinking this one out a little more. The most frightening aspect of all of this is when law enforcement tells me the new way that, let's see how I can say this. It's shocking, but I guess I should just say it. What they can't detect or what they can't stop in time is real-time abuse of a child, where people are watching that in real time and or giving direction how to abuse that child. I'm sorry I have to say all of this. I can't believe I live in a world where this type of behavior is happening, but it is. So we have to talk about it truthfully, openly, and honestly. So in real time, how do you stop that, right? And the other thing that gets to me is we have cases pending right now, lawsuits, where parents or caregivers or the child themselves has contacted the platform and has said, these are my nude images, or this is my abuse, or this is my video. And for instance, Twitter got back. There's a case, the boy was 13 at the time, and he was told these photos, these images do not violate our community standards. Yet, certain things are censored. I think you would agree. If you certainly talk about certain administrations, if you talk about truth realities, if you talk about vaccine, they can certainly, YouTube censor that. But when it comes to CSAM, child sexual abuse material, everybody's dragging their feet. So rightfully so, Supreme Court, I know there's more work on this tomorrow, and we'll be hearing more about it, but it belongs in Congress. And there is hope. There is a tremendous push right now for this 118th Congress to step up and start passing these child safety pieces of legislation, such as the Kids Online Safety Act, as the Earn It Act. It has nothing to do with your freedoms. It is simply to protect our most precious, our warriors, our child warriors, our beautiful children that right now are the currency. Because you and I know there is a war on for our children. So I'll be keeping you up to date about all of this. It rightfully belongs so, repealing, updating Section 230 with the Congress to change all of this, not the Supreme Court. And I want everybody to know what's going on because it's 2023 and we need all of you. We cannot do this alone. I also want to thank all of you who support us, watch these videos, make donations, just share our tweets, our Facebook, talk about these issues. The more we talk about it, the more we get it out there in the public, the more we will have, answers to things, and we'll intervene and we'll protect innocent children and all people. Remember, community creates change. Sign up for our newsletter. Go to lynswarriors.org, scroll down on the right side, e-newsletter. Sign up today. New one goes out tomorrow, so you still have time. Now, I'm off to a very important meeting here in New York City. That is our bipartisan group, New Yorkers for the Equality Model. We are fighting about the full decriminalization of the sex trade that is being pushed in New York State, that is being pushed secretly, quietly, sort of around the entire country. And that means that you could have a brothel next door. That means pimping and trafficking will be legal. That means there's no accountability for a sex buyer. We got to start talking about that more too. We have to hold that sex buyer more accountable because it is getting more, not getting more, it is vicious, the sex trade. It is harmful. It is hostile, anything you want to call it. We don't have the resources. We don't have places to put people. And we are proposing the Sex Trade Survivors Justice and Equality Act. The equality model works. That is, if the person wants, bring them out of the sex trade and give them holistic services, a place to live, re-entering society with employment. Now, that takes a lot of work. We're up for it because we know we're legalizing the sex trade, because I get this argument thrown in my face every single day. Places like Amsterdam and Germany where it's legal. You know what? About 97% of those women and men are still being controlled by a trafficker or pimp. We have multi-floor 8, 10, 12 floor brothels going on in Germany. The women are no better off. I should include the men too. The demand is for children. So there's a lot of money to be made. What does that mean? Very simple. More people will be trafficked, forced, coerced into this sex trade to make money. And we know where it's legal, it simply does not work. It will not work in New York State. It will not work in the United States. Join us. Go to the website, Equality Model New York. .org, sign your name, join us. And that's for New Yorkers. If you're not in New York, I urge you to go there anyway, equalitymodelnewyork.org. Start reading up about this because a lot of other states are facing this, and find out what's happening where you live. Remember, community creates change. Each and every day, be a warrior.